I gave you my everything, every thought, every heartbeat, every quiet moment I had, every time I stayed up late. I gave you patience, even when I didn't have any. I gave you understanding, even when I couldn't understand. You never asked for it, but I thought love was given. Even when it cost me pieces, even when it broke me inside. I remember mornings where your hand barely touched mine. I thought you were tired, I didn't see you were leaving. I stayed because I hoped that love could be learned. I forgave when it hurt, because I thought love could earn. You whispered promises, I memorized them all, even when actions said you weren't really here at all. I thought love meant sacrifice, I didn't know it meant empty. I gave you my everything, and you gave me half. I loved you like forever, you loved like a draft. I held on too long while you were already gone. I gave you my everything, but you weren't ready for someone. I replay every moment where I bent just to fit, every time I silence myself to keep you from leaving it. I stayed up late rewriting every text I sent, every I love you, every don't forget me yet. You never knew the weight of how much I stayed. I wore myself thin while you were learning how to fade. If love is supposed to hurt, why did I feel invisible? If love is supposed to last, why was I holding air? I don't hate you, I just hate the lesson of loving someone who never really wanted to stay. Some nights I still call your name, then remember you're not here. I still feel the echo of a love that disappeared. I'll patch myself slowly with pieces of me I forgot. Even though I gave everything, I'm learning to love myself a lot. Furthermore, I gave you my everything, and I learned to let go. I loved with no restraint, now I'm learning it slow. I held on too long, but I'll be whole again. And I gave you my everything, and I'll give you back in the end. One day someone will need that I was with. I wasn't hard to love, I was just asking for honesty. I didn't need perfection, just presence and consistency. You made me feel dramatic for wanting clarity, like love was something fragile that would break if you chose me fully. I lowered my expectations, then lowered them again, until I barely recognize the woman I was then. I stayed quiet to keep you calm, ignored my intuition. Funny how self-betrayal starts sounding like compassion. I believed your confusion more than my own pain. I wasn't hard to love, you just weren't ready. I needed effort, you needed maybe. I asked for truth, you asked for time. I wasn't hard to love, you just were mine. One day you'll meet someone who won't accept halfway, and you'll understand what I was asking for. I lowered my expectations, then lowered them again, until I barely recognized the woman I was then. I stayed quiet to keep you calm, ignored my intuition. Funny how self-betrayal starts sounding like compassion. I believed your confusion more than my own pain. More than my own pain. I wasn't hard to love, you just weren't ready. I needed effort, you needed maybe. I asked for truth, you asked for time. I wasn't hard to love, you just weren't mine. One day you'll meet someone who won't accept halfway, and you'll understand what I was asking for. I wasn't hard to love, and I won't apologize for wanting something real. Love shouldn't feel like convincing. I waited in small ways you never noticed, like saving my stories just to tell you first, like holding my breath when your phone went silent, convincing myself that space doesn't hurt. You said you were bad at expressing, so I learned how to read between lines. Turned your bare minimum into something I called trying. I remember the night I felt it shift. You laughed but didn't look at me. That's when I knew something was wrong, even if you were still next to me. I made excuses for your absence, like it was my second language. Told my friends he's just overwhelmed, while I was quietly breaking. You never asked what I needed, you waited for me to adjust. I kept bending until love felt fragile, like one more question might ruin us. You were there, but not really, present in body, gone in truth. I was in love with your potential, while you were halfway out the room. I felt alone while lying beside you. That's a pain I can't explain. Being loved halfway still feels like being left. I waited longer than you loved me, held on when you were already gone. I fought for something you stopped choosing, and called it being strong. You let me believe in someday, while you lived in for now. I waited longer than you loved me, and I'm just seeing it now. I remember celebrating your wins, while mine went unnoticed. You were my priority, I was just something you focused on sometimes. I learned how to soften my voice, so I wouldn't sound like a need. Funny how love gets uncomfortable when it asks for consistency. You said you deserve better, but stayed anyway. I didn't know that sentence was a warning wrapped in concern. You knew I loved deeply, you just didn't love that way. And I kept hoping you'd grow into it while shrinking myself each day. I waited longer than you loved me, ignored what my heart already knew. You stopped choosing us quietly, I kept choosing you. I replay every I miss you, wondering which ones were true. I waited longer than you loved me, and that truth hurts more than losing you. If love is effort, I gave you mine. If love is honesty, I crossed that line. I told myself patience was noble, but sometimes it's just fear of walking away from something that was never really here. I don't think you're heartless, I think you were unsure. But uncertainty still cuts when you're loving someone short. Breakdown soft, I stopped checking my phone and felt the quiet hit. Not relief, just sadness for how long I accepted this. I wasn't asking for perfection, just presence, just truth, just something solid from someone who said they loved me too. I know I waited longer than you. Your shadow, always behind, trying to catch pieces of your mind. I followed your laughter, your pain, your way, even when I had nothing to say. I bent myself so you'd stay, but you didn't notice me anyway. I memorized your habits, held your secrets like gold, ignored my own whispers because yours were too bold. I stayed quiet while you roamed, even when I felt alone. I gave you a home that was just my soul. I thought love was loyalty, I didn't know it meant giving up myself. I was your shadow, but you never turned around. I was everything and yet nothing you found. I loved you silently while you lived out loud. I was your shadow, invisible in your crowd. If love is reflection, why did I disappear? If love is presence, why did you never stay near? Break down a dum-dum, break down a dum-dum, break down a dum-dum, dum-dum-dum-dum. I'm learning to step into the light, even if it's cold and bare. I was your shadow, but now I'm everywhere. I was your shadow, but I'll be my own sun. I was everything, but now I am undone. I loved quietly, but I'll rise loud. I was your shadow, and now I'm proud. No more hiding, no more fading. I'm finally here. You left me standing in the middle of a storm. The rain poured down, but I stayed warm with memories of you that felt like fire. Even though love had lost desire. I counted the minutes, the seconds, the days, hoping you turn, hoping for a phrase. You never whispered, you never returned. I stayed in the puddles where my heart still burned. I thought love was forever, I didn't know it could vanish. Left in the rain, with your shadow in my mind. I loved too deeply, but you were unkind. I waited for forever, but you ran away. Left in the rain, I'm learning today. If love is real, why did you leave me here? If love is true, why did it disappear? Breakdown. I'll dry my eyes, I'll mend my heart. Left in the rain, but I'll make a new start. Left in the rain, but I'll love again. I'll love again. Left in the rain, but I'm stronger than before. Too much, but I'm not yours anymore. I'll rise above the storm and let my heart remain. Left in the rain, but I'll love again. I'm breathing now, and the sun will come. There was always space between us, even when your hand held mine. I felt the distance grow, invisible but defined. You said you cared, but it never reached my skin. I stayed in the middle, where I couldn't win. I filled the space with hope, with distance, empty smiles, tired eyes. I leaned closer, you leaned away. I tried to reach you, but distance stayed. I thought love was staying. I didn't know it meant presence. The space between us grew wider every night. I held on tightly while you let go of light. I loved where you were and I lived where you'd been. The space between us was where I let you in. Through this myself near. The space between us no longer has fear. The space between us is closing in me. I won't wait for you to set me free. I loved too long, but I'll stand again. The space between us ends where I begin. I am closer, even when alone. if love is together, why was I alone? When you left, so did me. Not all at once, not visibly, but piece by piece, day by day, I felt myself slowly slip away. I carried your absence like a weight on my chest, on my hands. I kept hoping you'd come back, but you weren't holding any plans. You said it wasn't about me, but everything felt like it was. Your silence screamed louder than any apology could ever give. I stayed in the ruins of what we used to be, while you moved like you were free. I moved like I was lost at sea. I remember the last time we touched, it felt like a goodbye disguised, like warmth in the winter that could never survive. You smiled, but it didn't reach your eyes. You spoke, but I heard nothing. I wanted to shake you awake, but I realized I was alone and loving. I rearranged my life around you, even after the cracks showed. I tried to fill spaces you left with hope I didn't know I owed. I gave more than I should have, more than I had left to give. I loved someone half gone and almost forgot how to live. I didn't leave when I should've, because love felt like fear, and leaving felt like losing the only thing I held near. When you left, so did me. I followed the pieces of my heart. I loved you too deeply while you loved apart. I stayed in the silence while you chased the wind. When you left, so did me. I stayed broken in the end. I replay every text, every call, every promise that went unanswered. I wonder if you remember me, or if I was just someone you wandered. I kept the good parts in boxes wrapped in my memory. I buried the rest in my chest like a secret cemetery. I tried to forgive the absence, tried to accept the goodbye, but forgiveness doesn't erase the nights I sat asking why. You moved like love was optional while I was mandatory. I stayed hoping for a miracle, but miracles weren't in your vocabulary. If love's supposed to heal, why did it hurt so much? If love is supposed to stay, why couldn't you hold on to us? I don't hate you, I just ache from loving someone who left. I don't regret it, I just break from a love that wasn't kept. Some nights I still whisper your name, even though it tastes like ash. Some nights I still wonder if my love was too much too fast. I'm learning to stitch the pieces and breathe with a quiet heart. I stayed after you left, but slowly I'm learning to depart. When you left, so did me, and now I'm putting myself together. I love when you stopped loving me. It felt like winter in June. The sun still rose, but it didn't feel like you. I stayed awake, thinking I'd missed the sign. doesn't fade that slowly. It doesn't linger in lines. I kept every message, every laugh, every word, even when I knew you weren't really hurt. I tried to rewrite the ending, tried to make it last, but the moment was over and love became the past. I thought love was holding, I didn't know it could leave. When you stopped loving me, I broke quietly inside. I loved you fully while you were already gone. I stayed too long trying to catch your hand. When you stopped loving me, I finally learned to stand. If love is forever, why did yours end? If love is enough, why couldn't you defend? I'll heal in pieces, I'll rise in grace. When you stopped loving me, I found my place. When you stopped loving me, I learned to love myself. I stayed too long, but I reclaimed my wealth. I love too much, but I'll survive the pain. When you stopped loving me, I rose again, and I am whole. You love me like a phase, like something you'd outgrow. I loved you like a place I was ready to call home. You said, let's see where this goes. I didn't know that meant alone. You kept your options wide, I kept my heart exposed. I celebrated moments you never planned to keep. I was counting days with you, you were counting sleep. I thought effort meant something, guess I was wrong. You love me temporarily, I loved you like forever. You said don't overthink, but you never said stay. I gave you all of me, you gave me just enough to make me miss you when you walked away. I don't think you meant to hurt me, you just didn't mean to stay. You love me temporarily, and I paid the cost of believing in something you already lost. You love me like a phase, like something you'd outgrow. I loved you like a place I was ready to call home. You said, let's see where this goes. I didn't know that meant alone. You kept your options wide, I kept my heart exposed. I celebrated moments you never planned to keep. I was counting days with you, you were counting sleep. I thought effort meant something, guess I was wrong. You love me temporarily, I loved you like forever. You said don't overthink, but you never said stay. I gave you all of me, you gave me just enough to make me miss you when you walked away. You just didn't mean to stay. You love me temporarily, and I paid the cost of believing in something you already lost. Temporary still hurts. You stayed until it hurt, until loving me felt heavy, until my questions sounded loud and my needs weren't ready. You held my hand like you meant it, looked me dead in the eyes, said I'm not going anywhere, right before the first lie. You learned my fears by accident, then stepped right through. I don't think you planned to break me, you just didn't plan to choose. I adjusted my expectations, lowered the bar again, called it being understanding while losing who I am. I noticed how you stopped asking how my day had been, but I kept asking about yours, like love was a competition. You were present when it was easy, absent when it was real. I was learning how to trust you, you were learning how to leave. I felt the shift before you said a word. My heart always knows before it hurts. You stayed until it hurt, until I started asking why, until loving you felt lonely and I cried myself to sleep at night. You stayed just long enough to change the way I love. Now I flinch at forever, 'cause you stayed until it hurt. I remember late night promises, spoken like they were true. You said you loved my honesty, but couldn't handle it when I needed you. You called me too emotional when I asked for consistency. Funny how love gets labeled when it starts needing security. I tried to be your peace while you were my storm. I kept believing in potential, you kept avoiding what you'd become. You said I just need time, I gave you mine, until I had none left for me. You stayed until it hurt, until my silence got loud, until I learned the difference between attention and love somehow. You stayed just long enough to teach me what not to accept. Now I'm rebuilding boundaries from the damage you left. If love is effort, I showed you mine. If love is staying, you crossed that line. I don't think you're a bad person, just unfinished, just afraid. But I paid the price for the parts of you that never changed. I hope one day